So, I made an update video about intentional inconsistency, but I realized I never made a video describing what it was. So, I want my videos on here to be consistent so that people understand what the hell I'm talking about. So, what I've been doing, I've been having having a lot of disappointments with in the dating scene, and so I've been trying to figure out what ways I can move differently in dating so that I won't get so many disappointments. And I know I've been told like different things by, my homegirls and my friends and people who care about me, don't, lower your expectations, don't expect a lot, don't, let it roll off you. Like when somebody does something and it puts you off and it's like, oh, I was hoping that this would be a good connection and it's not, don't wallow in it. Just, let it roll off on to the next, keep it moving, that kind of thing or whatever, right? And so one of the things that I have been struggling with an existing partnership is, when our relationship changes, and it becomes less, to me, it becomes less engaged. So the consistency factor, right? Where we had a certain amount of time that we spent talking regularly. And over time, it was a pattern in our relationship. And so, after a while, when shit happens over and over again for over a duration of time, you come to kind of expect that that's what's going to happen. Even if you're not like explicitly setting expectations, patterns of behavior, you follow the pattern and you act accordingly based on the pattern that you observe. I mean, that's like with anything, that has kind of happened. But then when there's some kind of change in either in other relationships or work or whatever the case may be, sometimes, well, what has happened is it'll make our relationship, the way we communicate, the frequency, the depth, where we don't spend a lot of time sharing the deeper things that's on our minds, that starts to shift. And it never becomes more or deeper. It always ends up becoming less frequent or less engaged or, more shallow types of just checking in, small talk instead of really substantial conversation, that kind of thing. And so for me, it feels like that I'm losing something. It feels like the relationship is shifting away from what it was. It doesn't feel good to me, right? So, in an established relationship, and this is something, this is a long friendship, a long relationship, years, what ends up happening is you have to, adjust. At least for me, I have to adjust and I struggle, with the adjustment. So I decided recently, after the last time I noticed the shift and I got frustrated, I decided recently that I was going to adjust in my mind this relationship to stop any expectation of any kind of consistent communication based on a pattern or otherwise. So I was going to intentionally create inconsistency in this relationship. So, I started saying, I'm gonna treat this as if it's a comic type relationship where we may see each other, we may not, we may talk, we may not. There's no like, I'm not gonna base my expectations of talking or spending time or anything on any kind of pattern that has been pre-established in our relationship over the years. Like I'm just letting it all go, right? So then I said to myself, well, what if I do this with a new relationship too? What if, no matter how much I like somebody and no matter how much I'm digging them or whatever, I could be like, oh, we might not talk. We might not talk. We might not see each other. We might not communicate. I don't know what that's going to feel like. Have this idea where, to implement this where, even though I dig at somebody and I really want to talk to them because I'm excited about them or whatever, I just put in place an expectation, and not just an expectation, but an action on my part, that there won't be that kind of, that won't necessarily enact that kind of communication or that kind of reaching out or any of that stuff. I'm just going to be, I'm treated like, we had a good time when were together, and when we first connected, it was great in that moment, and it may or may not ever happen again. and just set that up in my mind as that is how I'm going to intentionally create this. And so I started calling it intentional inconsistency. Because you know me, I like words. I got to give everything a fucking name. So basically putting it in place so that there is not an expectation of any kind of consistent anything, and this in creating this in an intentional fashion. So I'm setting the stage for it. By that, I am acting accordingly. I am not reaching out as much myself. I am, not letting my excitement about the connection drive my actions, and so forth. And then I'm also expecting that person to behave similarly. So that is what intentional inconsistency is. I feel like it's kind of like a dating experiment. I'm thinking of it as a relationship innovation, because it goes against like what I've always done, and how I've always kind of conceptualized things when they start. And so that is how it all began. And so I'm going to provide periodic updates, the epiphanies and things that I'm learning and things that I'm experiencing by way of doing this. So this is interesting. Anyway, that's it.